Hi, and welcome again to Tuesday Community Connections. It's always fun to have some time together to think out loud with you, even though we're not really having a conversation, but knowing that you're there and that you're listening, to share some thoughts that I have and some things that have been going through my mind. You know, one of the things that I think is constantly in the forefront of my mind these days, and maybe for all of you as well, is just the divisions and the sides and the difficulty that we have living together as people. I've maybe said this before, but it just makes me very sad. It hurts my heart that we can't find ways that we can get along. I keep asking the question, who is it that God didn't make? We're all creations of God. We're all children of God. God made us to be who we are. And why is it that we've chosen then to take a stand against some of God's children? That doesn't mean that we have to agree with everything, but why is it that we see some people as less worthy or as deserving of being rejected and punished and put down and called names? It's made me think as a Christian, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for us as Christians to live in a world that is this divided and that so easily rejects sometimes whole groups of people based on maybe one belief that they have or one thing about them, sometimes the color of their skin, sometimes the language that they speak, sometimes where they live. Why is it that we think we've got the right to do that? Well, I think, one of the things that I've thought about is that God made us to be who we are. We're each made to be unique and special. And part of what that means is that we're each made different and unique. We're not all made alike. And what that means is that we think differently. We've all had different experiences. Whether you live in Grand Forks or even North Dakota, maybe not even in the United States, we've all had different experiences, and those experiences shape who we are. Some of us have had traumatic and difficult times growing up or later on in life, things that have touched us and shaped us and made us look at the world in a particular way because of where we've been or what we've gone through. Some of us have had experiences that have shaped us in positive ways and made us look out on life as always good and always fun and able to climb to the top, and that's how we look out at life. Sometimes it's hard if you've been happy and successful most of your life to truly understand what it's like to be, in a sense, at the bottom of the pile or rejected. And sometimes those of us who have been at the bottom of the pile and rejected have a hard time understanding how can these people think that they can win all the time and they're in control and they can do whatever they want. We each think in our own way, and what we're missing is that coming together to listen to each other and to understand each other. And I think that's part of the gift of creation, is that when we are different. Imagine if we all thought exactly alike, if we all liked exactly the same things, if we all had the exact same hobbies, did things in the exact same way, and life would be a little bit like living in a robot world, wouldn't it? But I think that the differences that we have in who we are and how we do things is a gift that God has given to us to enrich life. And at the very least, those differences can make us think differently or look and see how deep the world really is, that there's all kinds of ways of thinking about and doing things. It can enrich life, not take away from it. We can learn more about the world and people and even ourselves by listening to and learning from and spending time with people who are different than we are. Only when we see differences can we appreciate what we have or what we want or what we value. And sometimes, as I said, by those experiences we change who we are. And at the very least, we can at least understand those who are different than us and have some kind of feeling about why it is that they believe what they believe or do what they do or go through life in the ways that they do. I think the other thing is that we need to recognize that it's okay to not agree. It's okay to disagree. Sometimes what we have to do is just agree to disagree. But in those times, that doesn't mean that because we disagree or are on opposite sides of an issue, that we need to put the other side down or call the other side bad or reject the other side as cold and uncaring and awful kinds of people. I think we need to look and to see that we are created by God, made to be who we are, gifted and special, and every other person is as well. God made us that way. But God also gave us the ability to think and to learn and to appreciate and to grow. And I wonder maybe if during these times, instead of taking the time to learn and to grow and to listen and understand, we're just building walls around ourselves and fortresses around ourselves and what we want and what we know, and kind of closing walls in around our world and making our world small. Only what I know and only what I like, and everything else is bad. And then we really live in fear, don't we? I mean, pushing everything else away because it's not what we know or not what we like. And maybe we've decided that we don't like it even though we've never thought about it or never tried it, but it's different than what we are. One of the things that I've thought about recently is back, I think when I was in college, there was a bit of a movement, and there were bracelets and necklaces and all kinds of things with WWJD. What would Jesus do? That's come back to me now in these days. What would Jesus do today? I mean, we're really good, everybody, at pulling out a Bible verse and saying, here's what the Bible says. And I've said it many times before, but you can prove anything that you want by pulling one verse out of the Bible. You lose the context, you lose the story, you lose what it's all about. But when you look at what would Jesus do, I mean, when you think about the Bible, the words of Jesus, there's lots of words of Jesus in there, but in all honesty, during his entire life, it's just a minority of the words that he spoke that we read and that we have in the Bible. But what would Jesus do calls us to look more at how did Jesus live? How did Jesus do his ministry? How did Jesus relate to other people? What would Jesus do in a situation like this? Not what does the Bible say, what are the words of the Bible, but looking at how Jesus lived, looking at his ministry, looking at his dealings with people. What would Jesus do? Well, as I think about it, I think the first thing that Jesus did was always loved people. Jesus looked at people with love, and you hear that often. He looked with compassion. He looked with love on these people who would come to him. Some of them sick physically, some of them with some mental kinds of things going on, some of them who were just in need and poor and rejected. But Jesus always looked in love at people, despite where they'd been or what they had done. And then if you look at what Jesus did, Jesus accepted people as they were. He was among the sinners. He was among the tax collectors and those people of the time. He didn't always agree with everything that they did, but Jesus accepted them as a person, respected them as a person. Jesus didn't put them down, didn't tell them that they would need to change in order to be called a good person or be a follower. Jesus accepted them as they were. And notice then what Jesus did. Jesus showed them God's love. Jesus showed them another way. He didn't demand that they change. He didn't hold a gun to their heads. He didn't say that he was going to punish them if they didn't do what he expected. He simply showed them a whole new way of life. And when you listen to how Jesus talked to people, you don't hear him calling people names. You don't hear him rejecting people because they didn't agree with him. Even those people who put him on the cross, he didn't answer to. He didn't put them down. He didn't say to them, you'll see. But Jesus willingly went forward, quietly, accepted them doing their job, accepted them perhaps not understanding what it was they were doing. Jesus loved people. Jesus accepted people. Jesus respected people. And I wonder if maybe that's what we need to start thinking about today. Taking time to listen to people's stories, listen to where they're at, to accept them. Sometimes as hurting people, sometimes as people that are doing things that hurt others, but accepting them for who they are and then wondering how can we make a difference in their world or in the world around us. It doesn't mean that we agree. It doesn't mean even that we approve, but we see them as a child of God, hurting, disillusioned, going the wrong direction, but not one that deserves to be fought with or to be put down, or not one worth dividing our lives over, but rather one that needs to hear God's love. So how can we show that? How can we say that? It seems like an impossible task to change the world, and in a sense, it really is. The only way I know how to think about that is that if I start with me, I can maybe change one thing about me, or one thing about people, that how I deal with people that are around me. And who knows, maybe my changing something or accepting or showing love to someone will start a ripple effect, and that person might change someone else. We don't always know about all the changes that we make, but they're there. Kind of like throwing that rock into the water and you see those ripples go forth. I think that's what you and I as Christians are called to do. To, in our own small way, show our love for people as Jesus showed love for people. Show our acceptance of people as Jesus accepted people that were very different from who he was and what he was doing. For not putting people down or choosing to be on opposite sides, but to look and to see that we're all children of God. And maybe as we treat one another with respect, that small ripple will get bigger and bigger and bigger. Maybe it'll change our family. Maybe it'll change our school. Maybe it'll change our workplace. Maybe it'll change our community. It will change us, and it might change even more. So as I think about now, once again, how it is that we live in this divided world that seems angry at everybody else, I think you and I as Christians are called to follow Jesus and to ask ourselves, what would Jesus do? Thank you, and have a good week.